Hi, folks. So you liked my Netflix recap. I got a lot of nice comments on that. A lot of folks asked if I could do a Tour de France podcast. Um, I'm going to be super honest. I have not watched a bike race since I retired in 2016. A couple exceptions when like a friend of mine was in the breakaway. It looked like they were on a stage. I would turn it on. But my relationship with pro cycling is complicated in that it kind of felt like I gave it 10 years and it stabbed me in the back. And I just didn't want to look at it. And then especially you get to the tour, and for the announcers are Chris Horner, like I cannot look at that guy. Super complicated. And at some point I was like, you know what? I should give it a chance again. I should watch this race. And we're gonna do it together is the idea. We're gonna get through this together. This might be like psychologically healthy for me. I have done hundreds of pro races. I do know a bunch of these guys and all these teams. So there might be some things that I can share that they won't talk about on TV. I do get some squawk from inside the peloton. But for the most part, what I'm looking for is to just enjoy this race with you folks and see what you think about it and kind of go through it together. I don't want to be like a critic or a negative Nancy. I just want to tell it like it is. Originally, my plan for this was to have no sponsors, but then I found out what all the web hosting costs and what this microphone was $300. So I think it'll pay off. It's going to sound better, right? It sounds better than my previous version. I hope so. You're welcome. But I do have to do a little bit of capitalism here. We'll start with Phil's Cookie Camp. Phil's Cookie Camp is going to be March 22nd, 24 next year. This is a fun all weekend, all inclusive, like kind of a high end. We have my Fondo in the fall, and that's just you come ride and there's a meal. This one, there's hotels included. We got like a wine tasting. It's limited to like 35 to 50 people. So by the end of it, like we know each other. We're hanging out. You're petting my dogs. We're having a good time. It's a lot more intimate and keep in touch throughout the year kind of thing. Ends up like just honestly a really fun weekend, and we all have a good time. So registration for that is open, philspondo.com. Check that out. That'll be our ad for today, is my own business instead of a sponsor. Some things to think about during this tour. France seems to be having their George Floyd moment. There's some crazy protests going on in Paris. They're arresting people. There was a 17-year-old who was shot by police. The law, it made it where if a car tries to drive away from police, they can shoot it. And that was a couple years ago, and since then there's been an increase in police shootings, and there's protests in the street. Someone was suspended, but it seems like that's gonna at some point that's gonna connect to the Tour de France. That Paris is a mess at the moment, and I feel like if we're doing predictions, there was the climate protesters that wouldn't be surprised if they come back, but the police forces are going to be stretched thin at some point, and B, that's something to watch out for at some point. The Tour de France will cross paths with whatever reality is taking place. I did watch the team presentation. I'm not going to lie. I watched it, mostly like at 2x speed. No one should watch that all the way through. The team presentation is kind of like an opening ceremony for the Olympics. Picture it that way, where all the riders are sort of introduced. The back end of that, it's pretty tough. Like the riders, you can tell the riders hate it, because they got to stand around like, it's get here at 4 o'clock and stand. Well, I'm sure they don't make them stand. I'm sure there's chairs for all the riders. You never make a pro cyclist stand the day before the Tour de France, but they're all hanging out. For sure they all got to Bilbao a few days before. Being in the same hotel 2 nights in a row, so stage 1 was Bilbao to Bilbao, and then you get a couple days beforehand to do whatever press and media and the presentation, and like kind of bad interviews on stage in front of a crowd of 200 people. If you're in the same hotel a few nights in a row, that's like a vacation of these guys. That's so rare to be off the road and to still kind of have that. So they get to, you'll unpack, you'll put your stuff in the drawers in the hotel. Just, it feels like such a luxury that you can. So it's a chill start in that way. Opening ceremonies had performances by, it was Snoop Dogg and Rihanna. No, it was like some kind of it was some dancing and some music. When I first turned it on, I subscribed to Peacock and I put it on, and there was like kind of a river dance looking thing, a guy overlooking a cliff, and I was like, what the fuck, I just paid for Peacock. All right, the mustache is gone. I tried to hide it. Some folks were really excited about the mustache. Personally, I was sick of it. It was very controversial in the comments. Anyway, there's no more mustache. Rest in peace to that guy. But there was a guy dancing along a cliff, and I'm not criticizing dancing or what an opening ceremony is supposed to be, But I thought it was going to be an ad for something, and I was pissed because I just paid for Peacock, and I was like, "What is this ad?" And then it turned over to like a stage on the beach, and there was a crowd of looked like a few hundred people watching, and they didn't know what they were watching either. And then there was some like drum things. There were two announcers who introduced the mascot for this Tour de France, whose name was Maxu, not Max. At first I thought it said Maxi, like a maxi pad, and that was funny to me. But it's Maxu. I don't know what they do with I don't know why we need a mascot anymore. He looked kind of like Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse avatar. Um, it's for the kids. That's fine. It's for the kids. It's not for me. But that's a chance that you see the riders and whatever their new kits are. Trek debuted their is it Lidl or Lidl? Lidl. It's like a big supermarket chain over there. So that's a good sponsor to have. Goodbye to Segafredo is the thing. I'm not sure how the money works out, but it looked like for someone to take over halfway through the year, I'm guessing Segafredo really wanted out, and Lidl's like, here's $2 and we can move over. So they got their new. People were criticizing the aesthetics of the Lidl kit. I don't know. You've seen how I dress. I'm not the fashionista, but it looked fine to me. What do you want? It's a Lidl jersey. There's a Lidl logo and a Trek logo. That's how it's going to go. It looked like it was. I'm not going to say it was designed by a fashion designer. It was more like a graphic designer who needed a kit real quick. That deal was probably done 3 weeks ago, and then they got to print them. So you got to turn that around real fast. So not the most creative, but again, you're kind of trying to squeeze a bunch of logos onto the front of a guy who probably weighs 140 pounds. Didn't see any new sponsors other than the Trek thing. No big reveals or new kits or anything like that. EF normally pulls some hijinks. Their helmet this year didn't have any ducks or skateboards or waterfowl on it whatsoever. Kind of a surprise. Maybe that comes later, but I think there's a fine if you change it during the tour. You have to get approval. I'm not sure. Time will tell. To be clear, do not go back and watch the team presentation. Don't watch that. Don't put yourself through it. There's some new bikes debuted for the tour. If you're into that, I'm sure there's 100 features and dorkery and zoom shots of whatever custom paint schemes. The national champ jerseys, like all the national championships happened the last few weeks, so a lot of guys get their new duds in time for the tour. Some poor guy has to like print those real fast. You win 3 days ago, and here's your new jersey right before the tour. But that's the nature of it, and it's nice to see all the different jerseys for the teams and the national champions racing in the tour. That's how it should be. Of course, the race starts in Spain, so the opening ceremony starts in Spain. I just don't love when the Tour de France happens in another country. Good for Basque, and they love it. But opening ceremony for the Tour de France, I just feel like that should be in France. Call me crazy. Okay, on to the race. Overall, I'm just going to do some predictions here. Why not? I'm going to do some predictions. You guys tell me if I sound crazy or not. I'm going to think Pogacar wins. They came with a stronger team. They got Adam Yates to support him. So the last year, I think he lost last year for two reasons. One, I think he thought he was going to win by half an hour, and he sort of hot dogged the first week and never came out of that hole. I think Vingegaard took advantage of Pogacar's overconfidence, and then having a stronger team certainly helped him. They got him isolated one day, and that was the majority of Pogacar's time losses was from one stage where hopefully they don't get him isolated again. But I think he's the strongest guy, and he's going to be smart enough to race a little more conservatively, take time where he can, and use his teammates more. I think the two teams are Jumbo-Visma is still a stronger team for sure, but I think it's closer now and enough to sort of neutralize. But you never know what could happen on the road. Other predictions, I'm going way out on a limb here. Cavendish is going to win a stage. Cavendish basically extended his retirement so that he could do one more tour. He signed to Astana, which I'm sure wasn't his first choice. That happened super late in the year. There's a whole team and millions of dollars invested and many months on Cavendish breaking this Tour de France record. He's currently tied with the number of stage wins with that record. He wants to beat that. He's a guy who knows how to win stages better than anybody else in the history of bike racing. He's super savvy. He's got a team behind him. He's not going to mess this up. I think Cav is gonna get a stage. I think he's going to do it early. Here's the part of the prediction that might not be a little bit more obvious. I think he's gonna get that stage and then maybe do one or two, but he's going to peace out. I don't think Cav bothers to go all the way to the Champs-Elysees. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see him, break the record by 4, but I think he's going to take it by 1. And it's just going to be, at some point, the race is going to get really hard. He's going to be like, I got it. I've done enough. I'm going to go home. I'm pushing 40 now. And tip of the cap to him when he does it. One more prediction: Mike Woods gonna get a stage win. First week, he likes the Basque, he likes the steep climbs, and a little bit of a homer situation because I like Mike Woods. I'd love to see that. I was watching the NBC, the Peacock, whatever we're calling it now, feed the cock. Uh, Brent Bookwalter was replacing Chris Horner. God, that made me happy to not have to hear Chris Horner. That was one of the reasons I was like, okay, I could watch it this year. I liked Brent. Brent was a super long, solid career, like kind of a quiet guy in the peloton, not big on, like, if you haven't heard of him, you're forgiven because he was just racing his bike at a very high level. He was on BMC for a long time. He bounced around a little bit towards the end, but like super solid career. He did win a Tour de France with Cadel Evans. He was on that team with Cadel, but he was a Girona guy. Pleasant dude, no drama, nothing bad to say about Brent. I've never known him super well. I knew him when my first year racing. I was collegiate racing, University of Florida, and he was at Lees McRae. I believe he would have been like a junior or a senior, and Lees McRae was like a big cycling school. It was like a varsity sport there and scholarships and whatnot. So they would let him just like go do national team races and like show up at class twice a year, kind of like the way the UF team would treat football players. UF school would treat football players. Lees McRae would treat the cyclists. So we just did the whole collegiate season and saw Brent like twice. And then at the SEC championships, Brent, of course, had to show up for that one. And I just remember, like, I've been racing like 5 months, and it's this like parking lot crit, super twisty, and Brent would not stop lapping the field. It was a short course, and he was more of like a mountain biker then, or kind of both, but like solid bike handler. He was already on a pro team and the national team, and he was super strong. But my memory of Brent, he lapped the field 5 times, and we were all just chasing him all day. I lapped 4 times, and then finally crashed, just like trying to follow him through a turn. I was not ready for what Brent was doing, and then just sort of watched him. Gradually, I felt better about him kicking my ass as he, got to the very top of the peloton, and so cool to see him on the NBC coverage. He was doing a good job. Stage 1, I thought Brent looked great, and again, anybody other than Chris Horner, I'd rather have a lawn flamingo. But Brent was a solid replacement, and I thought just did a great job. And of course, Bob Roll. I always enjoy Bob Roll. Hung out with him before. Phil Liggett, solid stuff. The tough job just talking about the Tour de France all day and trying to make it interesting when even the riders know it's not, and they're taking breaks. So it's easy to criticize those folks from the social medias or whatever, because if you give them 5 hours to blab, they're going to say something ridiculous. But tough job, and I actually like the crew who's on top of it this year. The stage itself, stage 1, not super interesting, pretty controlled. It wasn't going to be like a field sprint, so it was sort of who's going to decide to take control, but there was a couple teams. There's always someone who thinks they are going to win the stage, so it's not hard to find folks to kind of raise their hand and all right, we'll bring the breakaway back. But it was 5 dudes, which is not hard to keep under wraps. And they came back early. The early break went and then came back with 30K to go, which was confusing to me because then you don't want the break to come back that early because then another break could go. And then now who's chasing it? But I realized the reason they did that was because the KOM points, there was one climb that had, so normally the breakaway would soak up the KOM points, but if you bring it back and the climb that has the most points is at the end, then basically the field can battle for the KOM jersey. So that was how they played it. And Nielsen Powless got the points for the KOM jersey. So that's a guy, like they said he was 26 on his 4th tour. That's insane. I think this is going to be the tour where he makes a mark. He's starting with polka dots. Love to see that. I hope his dad brought the proud Papa Powless that we saw in the Champs-Élysées last year. I hope that jersey, that shirt is available, or he got more made. Send me one. No, I'm not his dad. Proud Palace, whatever. I like the alliteration. I like the shirt, bright pink. Let's hopefully see more reasons to wear that. Of course, green jersey also up for grabs. There were some intermediate sprints. Interesting to see who went for those and who didn't. Wout did not. I think Wout and Van der Poel were looking at the stage victory, which makes sense. So they're not gonna waste a couple sprints in the middle. Cavendish did go for it. So that's an indicator that at least he's keeping the opportunity open to try and finish the whole Grand Tour. It's also, it'd be pretty cool for him to end it with the green jersey on his back. I think personally, I think that's like a little bit lofty. I don't know if he's still in shape for that. I think he's for sure in shape to savvy himself into some stage wins. The consistency for the green jersey, it's it's a lot for an old man who's made his money and has enough records and shouldn't care that much. Mads Peterson also going for it. Jasper Philipsen also going for it. So the green jersey is shaping up exactly as expected. No one's going to kind of give up day one, but we'll see how it shapes out after the first few sprints. So the stage, it wasn't flat, it wasn't hilly, but there were some bumps that were definitely going to take the sprinters out. This was not going to be a sprinter stage, so you could sort of see those sprinters looking like, okay, what's the bump where I can sort of drop out and find a group to cruise in and save energy and not have to push over. So it looked like that was the one with around 20K to go. They're like, all right, here's our gruppetto. So those guys all came off sort of together as expected, and it was going to be a stage between not a pure climber, not a pure sprinter, but Pogacar lit it up. The Yates brothers ended up attacking over the top, so it was all the guys test each other. Everyone sort of looked at each other's legs. Pogacar was like, okay, Vingegaard's still here. All the hitters, as expected, were in there, but then they didn't decide like, okay, Pogacar didn't try to take time that day. Jonas didn't attack. They're like, okay, this is the selection. This is who it's going to be. So sort of a sizing each other up moment. And then the Yates brothers got away together, which is they're twins. That adorable. I'm sure mom and dad were very proud. Or were mom and dad, do you have to pick sides? Is mom cheering for one and dad cheering for the other one? A little bit awkward in a way. Also with the twins, who came out first? Who's older? That's always an interesting question. I'm not sure with those two. And then when one feels pain, does the other feel pain? In this case, absolutely yes. When you're attacking with a K to go at the Tour. They showed a little bit of Bilbao history. You can tell, like, when they start in a different country, or really anywhere they start, the city is paying for that. The city's paying for the host, or at least like comping free hotels and police stuff like that. They're offsetting a bunch of the expenses that would happen. So they did a little Bilbao promotion. The Guggenheim Museum looks beautiful. Basque region is great, especially stay out of there in April. It never stops raining. But summer, Basque Country, lovely, and the crowds are always super cool. There's serious bike fans there. Peter Sagan was also going for the bonus sprint. He was in the points for the green jersey. I was surprised to see that. He was recently arrested for a DUI or some kind of suspended sentence for DUI. He seems like a guy who's not entirely focused on the situation right now, and he's got some other things going on. I wish the best for Peter Sagan. I have a bad feeling that he's going to be a guy who's like, goes broke in 5 years and sort of a sad story. But we'll see. And now he's fit enough to sprint with the best in the world. So, but yeah, if you're getting hammered balls and getting arrested at 2 a.m. in Monaco, that was in May, doesn't indicate you're on top form for the Tour of July. First week of the Tour is notoriously crash heavy. There's nerves, and it's one of those like, it's dangerous because everyone says it's dangerous. So you're fighting for position. You're nervous. I think the bumpy stage today kind of helped. It sort of levels things out and evens things out. If it's pan flat, then there's just nothing to do but fight for position all day, and that's when the bad crashes happen. So there were a couple on descents. A couple guys went home. I saw Carapaz had a crash. Didn't look good he's their GC guy, and he was limping in and lost time. So he's no longer their GC guy. So no pressure on Paulus for that KOM. Saw a brief glimpse of Manuel Garate on there, getting out of the car and helping Carapaz up. I love, we call him Juanma on the team. He was the director when I was on that team. Love that dude. I don't know why, but for a couple of years he kept pocket dialing me. Like I'd see him on WhatsApp, and I always loved it. Like I know there's no reason to answer because he meant, but it's just great to see. Like, oh, what's up, Juanma? One of the news things from the Tour this week was that they're allowing the race radio to be transmitted, so the riders and what they're saying to the team directors can be on TV. Not all the teams allowed that, but some of the teams. And I noticed they did like a test for it of okay, let's get into the team car, whatever. We can do this year. And literally the first thing out of the mic was what the fuck. I'm not sure what that was about, but that's going perfectly. You couldn't have hoped for better than that. So like I said, some bumps in the road. This stage never going to be a big GC stage, but an indicator of who will be in the GC mix. Really more of a stage for the Mathieu van der Poels, the Wout van Aerts. Ultimately, the sneak away move from the Yates brothers and Adam wins. Again, I wonder, is that awkward? Is Simon can he pretend to be happy for his brother? Obviously, he wanted to win, but he sort of just like rode him off the last. It wasn't really a sprint. It wasn't contested. It was just like Adam was pulling, and then his brother was a little bit down. At least it wasn't like a bike throw, and there's no elbowing taking place. That would have made it much harder to deal with. So that means UAE looks good. Also notice that Bernal was right up in there. He wasn't in the front group, but he was just behind the chase group. That's a good sign for Bernal. There was a couple when I referred to Quintana as a doper. You know, the nation of Colombia, they're big cycling fans. They're passionate people. A lot of folks were mad that I didn't criticize. Well, I mean, I guess I did criticize Quintana, but you know, he did take tramadol when he knew he wasn't supposed to. So they made the point and distinction that he wasn't doping, he was cheating, because doping is determined by WADA and cheating is determined by the UCI. One of those like potato, you guys, like that guy took a pill that he knew he wasn't supposed to perform in a bike race. And a painkiller, absolutely, whatever. So and you're also talking to a guy who, like, the best result of my very middling career was finishing second overall to Quintana at a stage race. So I don't have a lot of patience for that guy, and for all the folks saying, like, you know, I would say one thing as a guy who was a fan of Lance Armstrong coming up, let's all do our best to not attach our like national or personal pride to one professional bicycle racer. That often doesn't end well. But I'm gonna also throw out, like, Quintana's not your best guy. Focus on Bernal. Bernal seems to be a great dude. He has some adversity coming up, and maybe he gets it back. I'd be stoked to see that. And I love Colombia. I love the people of Colombia. I love the nation. I've been there a bunch of times. Awesome spot. It's just some questions that I kind of want to go through every day, and maybe this part will evolve. The whole thing will evolve. We'll see what you guys like. Let me know what you guys like, what you want to see more of, less of. Feel free to ask questions in the YouTube comments. But if you haven't watched the stage, do you want to watch it? I would say you're safe to skip it. I would say watch the last 5K. Watch the last 5K. You don't have to watch the whole thing. On a scale of 0, which is leave it off, to 10, which is make my wife Emily watch it, I'm going to put this at a 2. But, you know, check it out if you want to see the new jerseys and you want to kind of get an eye on the riders. And if you're a Yates fan, for sure, check it out. If you're a Nelson fan, for sure, check it out. If you were there watching in person, where would you want to be on this course? There's a lot of, you know, the roadside climbs always looks like a scene. There's, you know, people with some kind of smoke things and flags. The problem with that is, you know, you're standing there all day. You got to get there. You got to probably riding bikes up there, that's a cool part. But then, you know, you're taking your shirt off. You're standing around. It's a lot of standing around for hours for the riders to come by for a couple minutes. There was a part where right along the coast there was what looked like a rooftop bar. And a bunch of people, you know, they just have a big screen set up and they were sort of dancing. That's where I would be. Let me know where you'd like to be watching this stage from. You know, the finish line's always sort of a mess, and then you got traffic coming down. So keep those things in mind. But if you had to watch the stage, where would it be? I'm gonna sort of, that's gonna be a question I revisit every day. You know, overall, have it on, do the dishes, do the laundry. It's background noise. Pay attention to the last few K. Watch the last KOM going on, and then watch the finish. All good. I enjoyed good first stage. As first stages go, we're primed. We got a little blue balls for the GC guys, all kind of shuffling up and eyeing each other. We got a sense of what's coming up, and we're ready to go for another 3 weeks. Tomorrow's stage looks pretty similar, kind of lumpy hills, a little bit bigger hills, but kind of hard to tell who the favorites are going to be. Most likely not a thing that the GC guys are going to go for. I'm thinking similar to today as far as the way it pans out tactically, and, you know, maybe not a Yates twins escape in the finale, but a Wout, a Vanderpool, those kind of dudes. Maybe a Pidcock gets in there. But definitely a stage where, like, the GC guys have to pay attention and be on top of it. They're going to be right in that mix as well. All right, so thanks for watching. We'll do our best to keep this going. And again, leave a comment of what you'd like to see, how you'd like to see this evolve. And Phil's Cookie Camp, March 22 to 24. Join us. That's going to be a great time. I'm my own sponsor for today's episode. See you tomorrow.